Robert Durst. The mystery began on January 31, 1982, when Kathleen McCormick vanished following a dispute with her husband, wealthy real estate heir Robert Durst. Although Durst claimed he escorted her to a local train station the following morning, she vanished without a trace, and authorities filed no charges. Decades later, on December 24, 2000, tragedy struck again, when Robert's close friend was discovered dead from a gunshot wound to the back of her head in her Los Angeles residence. Investigators suspected she held key secrets regarding his missing wife, yet, despite being interrogated, Robert walked free once more. Soon after, he assumed a false identity to lay low in a small Texas town. There, on September 30, 2001, his neighbor was fatally shot, dismembered, and discarded in the water. Durst confessed to the act but successfully argued self-defense in court, earning an acquittal from the jury. For a long time, his immense fortune, legal team, and sheer luck kept him untouched. His luck finally ran out in 2014, when he participated in a true crime documentary series. In a chilling twist during a break, he walked into the restroom with a live microphone, unaware it was recording, and muttered to himself, "What the hell did I do?" Killed them all, of course. This shocking slip led to his arrest on March 14, 2015, just hours before the final episode aired. By 2021, he was finally found guilty of murder and handed a life sentence. On January 10, 2022, Robert Durst passed away behind bars, closing the chapter on a man who evaded the law for decades, only to be brought down by his own whispered confession. David Berkowitz, famously known as the son of Sam. The terror took hold of New York City on July 29, 1976, when an elusive gunman began targeting young adults and couples parked in their cars under the cover of darkness. David Berkowitz. Between July 1976 and July 1977, New York City was paralyzed by a wave of terror. A gunman named David Berkowitz, infamously dubbed the Son of Sam, stalked the streets with a .44 caliber revolver, leaving 6 people dead and at least 7 wounded. The atmosphere was thick with dread. Citizens were terrified to walk at night, sit in their cars, or venture out alone, as everyone anxiously wondered where he would strike next. What amplified the horror was Berkowitz's obsession with mocking investigators and the press. He sent chilling letters claiming a demon-possessed dog named Sam was commanding his actions, a narrative he later confessed was a complete hoax. By broadcasting his cryptic notes and taunts, the media inadvertently fueled the hysteria, though this intense coverage also kept the pressure on law enforcement. Berkowitz thrived on this manipulation, feeling a twisted sense of entertainment from the panic he created. Ultimately, public vigilance paid off. On August 10, 1977, police tracked a parking ticket, issued near his final crime scene, straight to Berkowitz's vehicle, resulting in his arrest. While he blamed malevolent forces for his actions, experts believe he was simply driven by a desire for notoriety and power. Decades later, interviews and documentaries continue to analyze how he held an entire city hostage through fear, cementing his place as one of America's most notorious criminals. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, on May 25, 1978. A highly intelligent mind took a dark and destructive turn. Ted Kaczynski, who would become known to the world as the Unabomber, launched a violent one-man campaign against modern technology and the industrial world. For nearly 20 years, spanning from 1978 to 1995, he executed a calculated series of intermittent attacks. Kaczynski meticulously crafted homemade explosives, cleverly concealing them inside everyday items, like wooden boxes, books, and mail packages. His targets primarily included universities, airlines, and individuals connected to technological advancement. Before his reign of terror ended, his hidden traps claimed 3 lives and injured 23 others, leaving a trail of fear across the entire nation. Many of his explosive devices were engineered to detonate upon opening, though some malfunctioned or caused alternative forms of devastation, making them highly volatile and unpredictable. For years, he isolated himself in a remote Montana cabin, completely cut off from civilization and contemporary technology. Subsisting on basic rations, without electricity or running water, he dedicated the majority of his time to orchestrating his plots. In 1995, the FBI persuaded the New York Times and the Washington Post to print and circulate his 35,000-word manifesto, titled Industrial Society and Its Future, which detailed his deep-seated animosity toward modern technology and industrialization. Eventually, his brother spotted the distinct prose style, realizing Ted could be the Unabomber, and alerted the FBI, which aided in tracking him down. On April 3, 1996, Ted Kaczynski was captured at his Montana cabin. He entered a guilty plea and received a life sentence, without the possibility of parole. Khalil Wheeler Weaver. Beginning on August 31, 2016, in Orange, New Jersey. Khalil Wheeler. Weaver utilized social media dating applications to target women and set up meetings. Within a mere 3 months, he assaulted and took the lives of at least 3 women, while leaving another severely injured. His pattern involved abandoning the victims' bodies in deserted properties, post-attack. Once isolated with them, he would resort to strangulation, and occasionally set the remains on fire to destroy evidence. However, his critical error was relying on social media to reach his targets. By using the exact same online profiles to message different women, he inadvertently helped detectives link the crimes together. The identical method used in each attack clearly indicated premeditation. One surviving victim later detailed how she was restrained, providing crucial evidence for the case. After another young woman went missing, her relatives noticed unusual activity on her profile and set up a decoy account to lure him in. Believing he had found another vulnerable target, he agreed to a rendezvous, but the authorities were waiting for him, resulting in his arrest. The entire case left the public deeply shaken. Wheeler Weaver tracked his targets through social media, but it was his own reckless arrogance that ultimately walked him right into a trap. Today, he is paying for his actions behind bars, serving a 160-year prison sentence. Then there is the chilling case of Keith Jesperson, notoriously remembered as the Happy Face Killer. On January 21, 1990, a long-haul truck driver set out on a journey across multiple states. However, haulage wasn't his only agenda. He deliberately hunted women he encountered along his driving routes, taking their lives. This man was Keith Jesperson. While he took credit for far more, authorities confirmed he murdered at least 8 women. His execution was terrifyingly methodical. He would strangle his victims and discard their remains in isolated spots, ensuring they remained nearly impossible to locate. The turning point came when news broadcasts revealed that innocent individuals had been wrongfully arrested for one of his homicides. Driven by a twisted ego, Jesperson began dispatching anonymous letters to journalists and law enforcement. These messages contained explicit confessions and crime scene details that only the actual perpetrator could possibly possess. Crucially, he routinely signed off with a hand-drawn smiley face, a trademark that soon prompted the press to dub him the Happy Face Killer. As newspapers began publishing snippets of these eerie letters, Public hysteria mounted and media frenzy peaked. For Jesperson, this intense spotlight and twisted validation were exactly what fueled his desire to keep writing. Yet, the letters alone weren't enough to trip him up. For the next several years, he maintained his deadly routine of taking lives and mailing notes, culminating in his final known murder in early 1995. His reign of terror unraveled shortly thereafter, triggered by a confession letter he penned to his own brother, exposing his multiple slayings. Refusing to protect a murderer, the brother handed the written confession over to the police, leaving Jesperson with no choice but to eventually surrender to the authorities. Detectives successfully tied him to the anonymous correspondence through rigorous handwriting analysis, the exclusive crime details embedded in the texts, and forensic evidence that later solidified his connection to the string of homicides. On April 14, 1995, he was officially placed under arrest and handed multiple life sentences without the possibility of parole. In the aftermath, even inside a maximum security cell, Jesperson's obsession with the spotlight never faded. He continued writing letters from prison, targeting newspapers, reporters, and true crime authors. While these post-conviction letters were no longer tied to active crimes, they served as a desperate bid to feed his hunger for attention, ensuring his dark legacy continued to haunt the public long after he lost his freedom. John List. On November 9, 1971, a deceptive calm masked a horrific tragedy inside an ordinary residence in Westfield, New Jersey, when John List took the lives of his wife, 3 children, and mother. This cold-blooded act was meticulously orchestrated ahead of time. After shooting each family member within the house, he systematically cleaned up the crime scene and vanished, leaving the victims undiscovered until December 7, 1971. Prior to his flight, he left behind correspondence, justifying the slaughter as a financial rescue and a way to save their souls, alongside deceptive notes canceling local commitments to trick people into believing the family had simply gone on vacation. For the following 18 years, he successfully assumed a completely new identity, remarried, secured employment, and blended into society, while the investigation went completely cold. The breakthrough came on May 21, 1989, when a television broadcast revived the hunt by showcasing an age-progressed bust estimating his current appearance. Recognizing the likeness, a viewer identified him as her neighbor and alerted the authorities. This crucial lead tracked him down to Richmond, Virginia, resulting in John List's capture on June 1, 1989. Ultimately convicted on 5 counts of murder, he received 5 consecutive life terms, permanently halting his decades-long evasion of justice.